Well, 2022 is pretty much over. All of the movies have been released. But before we take a look at the best Hollywood had to offer this year, it's time to take a look at some of their worst. Here are my top 10 worst movies of 2022, meaning the higher up on the list they are, the worse I thought it was, meaning that the number one pick is the worst movie of the year. Now, fair warning, there's probably going to be some hot takes on this list. With that in mind, let's get started. Number 10, Hollywood's Stargirl. Now, I didn't absolutely hate this movie. It was certainly a slight improvement over the first one because Stargirl was an actual character in this. The focus on the first one was her boyfriend, but she actually gets to be the main character in this one. There was also actual conflict in this one, whereas the first one felt like nothing really happened. But I still can't really recommend it because, frankly, it's pretty forgettable. It's not horrible. It's not great. It's pretty middle of the road. Number 9, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Now, when I go to an MCU movie, I'm expecting it to be fun, and this wasn't. It was cultishly dark, tastelessly violent, had a convoluted plot with a main character who was more of a MacGuffin than an actual character, and the movie overall just left me with a horribly dark feeling, and this is coming from somebody who enjoys Harry Potter. Number 8, Hocus Pocus 2, a movie that's pretty much the same as the first one. The first 10 minutes or so when the three witches are kids was kind of interesting, and I really wish the movie had been a prequel about that. But instead, we get pretty much the same story beats, same lame jokes, and meta references that don't work or make any sense. This is like a 30-year-old candy that has new packaging and promises something new, but ends up tasting just as bland as it always did. Number 7, Sneakerella. Now, I've said many times before on this channel that I'm not against remakes, reboots, or retellings of stories, as long as you can do something new and different with it. And while this movie does have some entertainment value with its catchy songs and fun choreography, it isn't clever enough to justify its existence. The only memorable performance is Step Brothers because they're really fun, but that's it. This feels like a Disney Channel movie trying to be the next High School Musical or Descendants, but it's just so boring, bland, and dumb. Number 6, Cheaper by the Dozen. Yet another remake that has no reason for existing. Unlike the Steve Martin version where all the kids had distinct personalities, all the kids in this one feel exactly the same and are just products of the Disney Channel child actor factory. The message is also very heavy-handed, and the film hits the audience over the head with it by reminding us of it like every 5 minutes. This had no energy or comedy to it. Stick with Steve Martin version. Number 5, Death on the Nile. Now, this film is very gorgeous and well shot. The landscapes are amazing to look at, and even most of the cast is pretty good. But the main problem with it that puts it on this list is the awkward pacing. The actual death on the Nile doesn't happen until halfway through the film. Now, you have to spend time with the suspects and establish motive, but the film either spends too long on some things or rushes by others. The first 15 minutes of this movie gives us the backstory about Poirot's days in the war, but it doesn't actually end up having anything to do with the rest of the movie. Compared to Murder on the Orient Express, it doesn't have as tight of a script and isn't as engaging. Number 4, Moonfall. Given this film's utterly ridiculous premise about the moon crashing into the Earth and astronauts being sent to space to knock it back into orbit, it should have been a lot more fun. However, the execution is taken way too seriously. The movie is boring with uninteresting, boring characters, awful dialogue, things that are over-explained, and it should have been fun movie schlock, but it instead expects us to give credibility. Number 3, Ice Age Adventures of Buckwild, which is disappointing because I think Buck is one of the best characters of the Ice Age franchise. The animation in this is very cheap, direct-to-video looking. It's a problem when the original movie that came out 20 years ago looks better than the movie that came out this year. Simon Pegg is still entertaining as Buck, but Crash and Eddie, who were kind of funny in the other films, are annoying in this one, and they essentially just have the same joke over and over. This film is proof the Ice Age franchise should be extinct. Number 2, Rosalind. Again, I'm okay with doing retellings, and if they're from the point of view of a fairly minor character, even better. Think Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead for Hamlet. But this movie is a comedy where they forgot to write jokes. Instead, we get an incredibly unlikable main character with an actress who's just as bad, and the film, instead of being funny and poking fun at the story, decides to lecture on the mistakes of the past. This was one of the most painful movies I've sat through this year, and under normal circumstances, it would be number 1, but there is one movie that not only annoyed me, it genuinely made me both angry and embarrassed. The number 1 worst movie of 2022 is Turning Red. Out of all the movies I've reviewed this year, this has probably been the most divisive. Oh, this movie's so important. Pixar made such a mature story. It was so clever. Now, my problem with this movie isn't that it was mature and dealt with adult topics. My problem is that it dealt with adult topics, but it only got a PG rating, when a PG-13 would have been more fitting. If it had gotten a PG-13, I would not be as harsh on it. But my other big problem was the marketing and distribution tactics of this movie. They were incredibly deceptive. The film is a metaphor for a girl having her period, and it's not subtle. Like, there's a scene where they're talking about tampons, and there's also a scene where the main character twerks at her mother as an act of rebellion. The movie encourages rebellion against parents, it's loud and frenetic, and the end has this out-of-place abortion reference, and none of this is in the trailer. The trailer makes it seem like it's going to be kind of like the Hulk, but cuter, but nope, it's more of a ripoff of Teen Wolf. And rather than putting this movie in theaters, it was instead dropped straight to Disney+, meaning there's a higher chance that a parent will just see the cute little panda on the poster and put it on for their 5-year-old, not knowing the true nature of the film. It was sneaky and deceptive. Disney and Pixar should be ashamed. So congratulations, Pixar. You put out the worst movie of 2022. Congratulations. So let me know what you thought the worst movies of 2022 were, and I will see you tomorrow for my top 10 best.